All right, today we're going to talk about Standard 614, which is farming and agriculture in ancient Egypt. But before we do that, we're going to spiral back to these other questions. Now, you don't have to write these down. Normally in my class we write them down, but since we're video, and we'll just go ahead and say them. Raise your hand if you could tell me why it's called the Fertile Crescent.
Because they've been growing crops there.
Okay, and where were they growing it? What was it called?
Mesopotamia.
It was in Mesopotamia, right? And it's called the Fertile Crescent because it was shaped like a crescent moon, right? It went all the way from the Persian Gulf all the way down to where Israel is.
We're having some troubles.
I could tell.
If you don't really, okay, it shows your face now.
You good?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so what were the names, raise your hand, what were the names of the two rivers in Mesopotamia? The Tigris and Euphrates, very good. What is the word for controlling or moving water?
Irrigation.
Irrigation, good. What is polytheism? Believe in many gods. And what does justice mean?
To win?
No.
To get your way?
No. Justice, Standard 612. Stuff to remember.
Punishments for what you did.
Okay. Who gets punished?
The people.
The bad person.
The people.
Which people?
The one that did it.
Mesopotamia. Vengeance.
How about this? If you're close, it's equal treatment what we call it today, but it wasn't equal treatment back then. Justice is everybody has to obey the same laws. Everybody knows what the laws are, and the government and the people all agree that those are the laws. Now, in ancient times, were everybody punished the same? No, everybody were not considered. They were not considered equal back then. Remember, we're considered equal now, but they weren't considered equal back then. What is an epic? It's a long story about a hero. Good. Next. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about farming in ancient Egypt. Next. How do you take something and make it better? Give me an example.
Modify it.
Give me an example of something that you can modify and make it better. You're right.
Phone.
A phone. Phones have certainly gotten better over the years. Okay? What is something that made a phone better? I'll give you my perfect example. Something that made a phone better was adding the GPS to it. GPSs used to be very expensive. You would have one in your car, but it cost like $600. Now, once they put those on the phones, it was a game changer. Then everybody can basically have one. Good. Tell me something else that made a phone better. Something they put onto a phone.
Better cameras.
They put a camera. Now, phones didn't used to have a camera. Yeah, phones didn't used to have them. But when they added a camera, it can make it better. Good. What else?
Bigger batteries.
Bigger batteries. Okay. Tell me something else besides a phone that you can make better.
A car.
Cars were made better. They put windows. They put windows on a car. Usually the car was open air. That's kind of cold in New York in the winter.
Like the quality of clothes.
Quality of clothes, sure. What else?
Pencils.
Pencils. They made automatic pencils. They went from regular pencils to automatic pencils. All those are absolutely right. Next. So what I'm leading your brain to is our essential question for the day, which is what we're going to try to answer, is how did the Egyptians help themselves growing more food, and how did it affect their daily lives? Go ahead and write that down. Write the essential question down. EQ. Write it down where it says EQ. No, but I'll sharpen it. Can't walk through it. You all love pencils. Pencils are inferior to pens in every way. I hate pencils. All right, next. So why are we doing this? One, because it's a tested standard. Knowing how Egyptians made their land work for them will tell us how they became so powerful and successful. Next. So what crops did the Egyptian farmers grow? Egyptian grew crops such as wheat, barley, vegetables, figs, melons, pomegranates, and vines. How do we know? Yeah, we've got evidence because they drew about it. What's another thing that is a fruit, but we call it a vegetable that we know that the Egyptians grew? Tell me some, huh?
Potatoes.
No.
Bananas.
Tomatoes.
No.
Tomatoes.
Potatoes and tomatoes are native to America, so they did not have it. No.
Cucumbers.
Yes.
Oh, I got it right.
Here's how we know. That's in the book of Exodus. They wrote about the Jews were so angry at Moses and Aaron because they missed the cucumbers in Egypt.
What chapter?
Exodus? I don't know the exact chapter. It's when they're at Mount Sinai. And then so we have evidence of other things. Also, archaeologists love to find what? What does an archaeologist hope they can find all the time?
Bones.
No?
Evidence.
Artifacts.
Obviously. What I'm leading you to is archaeologists are always looking for trash piles. Because every part of a society or civilization, you can tell what they wore, what they built, what they made, what they ate, always find it in the trash. Right? Archaeologists love finding trash piles. Thank you, Dr. Burgess from ETSU, who was one of my history teachers and my advisor. Next. What else did they grow? They also grew flax, which was made into linen. Linen is a very thin cloth. Okay, it's very valuable now. Why were they wearing thin cloth in Egypt?
Because it was hot.
Because it was hot. It was hot. Next. Where did the farmers grow their crops? The Egyptians grew their crops along the banks of the River Nile on the rich black soil which was left behind after the floods. What was that called?
Silt.
Silt. Flood mud, right? And it was really black. Matter of fact, like I told you earlier, the Egyptians did not call their land Egypt. They called it the Black Land because of the rich soil.
Oh.
Who's still writing?
It says, where did they grow? On the banks of the River Nile, floods.
And you're caught up. Next. The Egyptians, like the Mesopotamians, used irrigation, canals, and levees. And irrigation is what?
Control of water.
Control of water. A canal is a man-made waterway or channel. A levee is a man-made water wall or raised barrier along a water source. They also dug ponds to store water. And you had to do that not because the rivers would flood uncontrollably or unpredictably like in Mesopotamia. They didn't. It was the opposite of that in Egypt. They knew when they were going to flood, but sometimes they didn't flood. Sometimes the water was low. And so you had to store water all the time. Who's still right? Okay. Next. So this is one of my favorite graphics that I show every year. This really showed perfectly how they used this irrigation system. And this was a long way This could be even up to a mile from the river. But you would dig these canals that would the river would flow into it, but not enough to change the course of the river. It would flow into that, and then you would put little barriers, like wooden barriers here, and then when you needed the water, you just open the barrier and it would come in here and fill this up. And this farmland grew right up next to the what? Right up next to the desert. If you look at our picture of the Great Pyramids, on the other side of the pyramid is a neighborhood. Okay, you don't ever see that picture. Yeah, it's right next to things. All right, next. So there is a canal. A canal is a what?
A river.
It's a man-made waterway. A man-made waterway or channel. Very good. Next. Here it is in ancient times.
Wow.
Cool.
I like this one.
Now you can also pull the wood and let the river flow through. You're going to have fish in there too. They got fishing poles in there. Easier to catch because where can they go? Next. How many seasons were there in Egypt? Egyptian farmers divided their year into 3 seasons based on the cycles of the Nile. Now I know that blank is already filled in. Highlight or put a star by that. Next. So there are the 3 seasons of the Nile. Next. Here's their yearly calendar. So here's the first season. How many months?
5.
4. If there's 3 seasons, okay, the year has 12 months. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, they all had 30 days. And then you had 5 days of like festivals at the end of the year to make 365 days. So how do we know this is what their calendar looked like? Next. There it is. There it is. Okay? We can also translate that. We'll talk about that next week or the week after. We can translate Egyptian hieroglyphics, and we can translate their writing called hieratic also. They had script. They didn't just write in pictures all the time. This was kind of a ceremonial language. You put that on all the tombs. So for 2,000 years, we didn't know what that said. And then about 1821 or so, we discovered something called the Rosetta Stone. And we know what the Egyptian says now. Next. So the first season was the flooding season, Aket. It was from June to September. No farming was done at this time as all the fields were flooded. And when the flood goes back, what does it leave them behind? Silt. Many farmers worked for the Pharaoh instead, building temples, pyramids, other building projects. By the way, make sure you understand that. One of the main things to understand about Egypt is everybody worked for the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was considered God on earth. He had the power of life and death over people, and you did what he told you to. So everybody worked for the Pharaoh. But during the flooding season, farmers can't farm, right? So they're going to have work, and they were paid in extra grain. Next.
A grain?
In grain, yeah. A lot of them didn't have money back then. Peret is known as the planting and growing season. It was October through February. In October, the floodwaters went behind, leaving behind a layer of rich black soil. This soil was plowed and seeded, and then they let it grow. And then you work it every day, and you open up the things, and you put water. Water goes out to it, and you use something called a shadoof. You dip the bucket in the water, and it pulls the water up, and you put it on the thing. Different types. I'm going to show you something very, very cool at the end if we have time that you're going to like. Next. Go back up. Go up, not down. That was weird. You keep going. Right there. Correct? Got a rookie computer worker over here. You'll learn it once. You done? Hand up if you're still writing. Okay. Give me a thumbs up when you're done. Well, we're not going to talk about that on the YouTube video. We'll talk about it in a little while. Those of you watching at home, this is a real classroom. Next. Shimu, the harvest season, which is March to May. The harvest season was time when the crops were cut and gathered. It was also the time to repair the canals and ready for the next flood. Why, did we talk about earlier, why was grain so important to grow? Grain is not especially good for anybody. Why was it good to grow? Because it could be stored. It could be stored, sure. You can't store a cucumber, right?
Okay.
You can now. You can put it in vinegar and put it in a jar. They didn't have glass. Those are called pickles. Okay? But you couldn't store it back then, you know. But you could store grain as long as you kept it what? Kept it dry. Next. What advantages did the Egyptians have over the Mesopotamians? The Nile, unlike the Tigris and Euphrates, flooded regularly and was less destructive. They knew when that was going to happen. Now, it didn't always flood, which was dangerous. You know, you have times when the river was low, you'd have a couple years at a time. At least 7 years one time. Okay, which made things very hard. Which was good that you had all this grain stored up. But when things were going right, they knew when that was going to happen. Unlike in Mesopotamia, it happened at the worst times. It was very destructive. Next. So how was the grain harvested? Reapers cut the ripe grain with wooden sickles edged with sharp flint. Women and children followed behind the reapers to collect the fallen ears of grain. Children are always drawn like adults, but smaller. You know, they weren't drawn like little fat babies or anything. They were always drawn like they were adults, but they were just small. Not many overweight people in ancient times. They just had to work too much. Now, some of the rich and wealthy would be. You know, royalty would be, but not everyday people. You worked too hard. And you didn't eat processed food. Everything you ate was good for you, right? Natural meat, natural vegetables, fruits, even grain, although grain's not great for you. Next. What happens next? Cattle were used to trample all over it wasn't corn, they called it corn, trample all over the grain to remove the grain seeds from the ears. Then the grain was tossed into the air, and the breeze would blow away the stuff that you couldn't eat. It was lighter, called chaff. That's separating the seed from the chaff, the grain from the chaff. Now, how do we know they did that? They showed us they did it. You just throw it up, it blows the stuff away. You throw it up, it blows the stuff away. Now here's something interesting. Does anybody know how you get flour from the seeds? Yeah, you grind it up, right? So something interesting on a lot of the skeletons they've found is a lot of them have worn out teeth because of the fine particles of rocks and sand in their food from grinding the thing. Sometimes you get little particles that wear your teeth out. Next. Did you get it? What food did the Egyptians grow? Cucumbers, wheat, grain, barley, vegetables, pomegranates, melons, figs. Good. They grew flax not for food but for clothes. So what did they do to help them grow more food?
Surplus of food.
Irrigation. What was their calendar based off of?
Weather.
No. Cycles of the Nile. How many seasons did they have? 3. Now, in my class, at the end, we always say, go forth and learn because knowledge is? It stopped.